What's
What's going on, Tim?
Not much. How's it up in Canada right now?
Cold as balls as always.
What is the temperature in Canada?
What was that?
What is the temperature in Canada right now?
It is, I don't know what it is right now, but earlier today it was like a nice solid minus 27.
Okay, now let's put that into American and put it in Fahrenheit.
What do you say?
Minus 27.
Like 2 degrees.
All right, so like 2
That's-
degrees. Not bad. All right, I'm
2
tuning
degrees.
back out now. Have fun.
So pretty much,
two degrees. I thought it was like in the minus in Fahrenheit down there too, but anyways, Tim, we got a show today, don't we?
yeah, I think you got a couple rants I think you want to get out.
Yeah, there's a couple rants that I might go off on. It's different doing a show without a countdown like we did the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
Just real quick, it's actually negative 16 degrees if it's negative 27 in Canada talk.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty much freezing before it hits the ground.
Yeah, pretty much. You can fry an egg on the sidewalk, and the egg will freeze to the shell. So it'll basically be sitting there with the yolk, and then eggshell stand on its own in like a big frozen ice chunk. It's pretty much how cold it is up here. It's almost Christmas. It gets to about that time where, you throw a pitcher of water up in the air and it just instantly freezes to ice at the same time. So it's pretty cool. So anyways, welcome to Inside the Ice. We are this is one of the first episodes back for actually doing real hockey news. The past 3 weeks, if you guys have been following us, we've been doing top 50, which the top 50 NHL players currently, which we wrapped up last week. And we've got some news for you here around the NHL and other hockey leagues, and a couple rants. I need to go off on a few topics here because it's been I've been holding it in all day, ready for this show.
Yeah, but
So,
you had a great day yesterday, Shane.
What was that?
You had a great day yesterday, Shane, where you found out that you're gonna have a son.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we found out today. My fiance is having a baby, and we found out it's a boy. So yeah, pretty happy about that. Born with hockey skates. So anyways, with all my my pregnant hormones or whatever, that's gonna help me with the rants later on in the show.
He's right.
So we're gonna get into it with our very first topic of today. So the news kind of broke today that there were multiple NHL teams around the league that were exploring the opportunity of maybe hosting outdoor games this season. Now, quite frankly, I mean there were teams like Boston, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, all those teams I can see maybe possibly working because it's a decent cold temperature in Minnesota in the winter. Boston can do it in the winter. Pennsylvania gets kind of chilly, so I can see that. But the two main ones that really, really surprised me were LA and Anaheim. How do you plan on hosting an outdoor hockey game in April, May in California where it's like 40 degrees Celsius in the summertime?
Shane, you're fucking me up. Because I
100 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll go with that.
All right. Because I looked up when I saw that. I looked up the average temperature per month in LA, and it didn't get like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I was like, "There's no way they're gonna be able to have any ice. Even if you go to Boston, you're only gonna have ice in Fenway for a couple months. You're not gonna be able to have ice in Fenway in like June, July because the season's not gonna start until like at least January, like late February."
Late January, early February, yeah. And that being said, like if the NHL wants to do a 60-game season, like they've been kind of saying, if you start end of January, early February, you're going to go into like once you get the end of the season done and you get into playoffs, you're going to be going well into June, possibly July by the time it's done. So you can't tell me that summertime at all these U.S. cities where it gets 90, 100 degrees Fahrenheit on almost a daily basis that you are going to have an outdoor hockey game it's not possible. The ice is going to be nothing. It'll be slush.
And it came out originally that those 4 teams wanted to do outdoor games, and then within a couple of hours, a couple more teams came out, and it was Dallas, Carolina, and Nashville. So you're telling me that it doesn't even snow down there in the winter. So how are they going to have ice when it gets June, July?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, Dallas being another one. I mean, Dallas didn't they host the Winter Classic, or was that Nashville?
Wicked slushy, and that was New Year's Day.
Yeah. So, I mean, even then, like, there's no snow on the ground. Like, I would have a hard time playing hockey outdoors with no snow on the ground, mainly because I can't, because in Canada, it gets so damn warm in the summer, and then it gets so cold in the wintertime. You can only really play hockey outdoors when there's snow on the ground. But that being said, even like Dallas, LA, Anaheim, San Jose, Tampa Bay, Florida, you can't tell me Miami, Florida, where the Florida Panthers play, is going to have an outdoor game. Not a chance in hell.
And that brings up the whole advantage, because I think they're aiming for outdoor games to allow some sort of fan capacity. And if there's going to be fans in outdoor arenas, but not every team can play outdoors, when they have their home games inside, there's going to be no fans, and that's such a disadvantage.
And I think at this point, like me and you were talking about this earlier, Tim, at this point, I think the NHL does not want to come back. Like, they can't afford to miss a season, but they also can't afford to have a season with no revenue. So at this point in time, where NHL, out of the 4 major leagues in North America, the NHL is by far the least paid. Like, you have people like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who just signed $30+ million contracts. The highest paid player in the NHL right now is Connor McDavid, $12.5 million a year. And for the NHL, a league that depends so much on ticket sales and store revenue for jerseys and stuff like that, like, you can't, like, it's not possible. Like, you're gonna lose so much money if you just come back and not have any fans.
Because the NHL has no contracts with TV networks for games, so all of their revenue from ticket sales and merchandise. So, like, all of these teams need fans in the stands. Yeah, the bubble worked out great to finish the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I feel if this had happened in like November, early December, very early in the regular season, I don't think the NHL would have had much urge to like actually play out this last cup finals.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but
there was only games left in the season when like the NHL canceled the rest of its season. So it was completed pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And like I said, for a league that depends so much on revenue, you're going to want to have those fans in. So like I said, me and you were talking about this earlier. Even if because like the average NHL arena hosts can hold probably between 18,000-20,000 people roughly. Yeah. So even if you open up those arenas, if you can't play outdoors, because I can't see a whole lot of players agreeing to playing outdoors, because the ice is going to melt, it's going to get slushy, it's going to get so hard to play. I can't see the NHLPA approving that. So that being said, if you still want fans in the building, even if you go down to 50% capacity, so you have 9,000-10,000 people in these arenas, you're still getting, a little bit of revenue to possibly get you through the season. Yeah. Because Gary Bettman did say no matter what happens, he wants to have the 2021-2022 season start on time and have a full 82-game season, right? Yeah. But you're going to need some revenue from this coming season to get to that point. So even if you hold 9,000-10,000 people in an NHL arena, have them, have it half capacity so that you can still social distance, have the fans wear masks at the games. Yeah, it's not ideal, but that's maybe what you might have to do in order to keep the revenue going in the league.
And like, something's better than nothing, and I agree with the idea of whether we need to make this like the 2013 season where they only play 45 games or 48 games.
Yeah.
Just so we can finish on time and get the following season started normal. I'm all for that. But if they keep pushing off the deadline, even if it's just a 45 game season, it's still going to end in August, September, because it was originally the middle of December, and then it was the 1st, and now we're at the end of January, early February.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm at the point now, it's December 3rd. I have never in my life until like this very moment not had hockey to watch on TV on December 3rd, and it's killing me. I just want hockey back. So
Winter is hockey season. Like it's just
well, especially in Canada where it's -20, -30 degrees every single day this time of year. You know, like all you want to do when there's ice and snow on the ground outside, all you want to do is go out and play hockey.
Yeah.
And that's all you want to do is on TV. Like I just got cable hooked up like 2 days ago and I can't even watch hockey now. So, I mean, that being said, you know, I just want hockey back. I want to be able to watch hockey. I want to be able to watch my team. And it doesn't look like the NHL is, you know, on the track to come back anytime soon because it's not going to start January 1st like they said. There's not a chance because Gary Bettman came out on a press conference, whether it was Monday or Tuesday this week, I can't remember, but he came out and said it's looking less and less likely because the NHLPA is constantly declining the revised CBAs, and rightfully so. I mean, at this I don't know. It's kind of a complicated situation for me because on one hand I'm with the NHL and on the other hand I'm with the NHLPA. You know, because the NHL wants this revised CBA to come out to, you know, have the players take a little bit of a pay cut to get the start of a season. I get it. The NHL needs to make revenue. But on the other end, you're looking at these players who probably 50-60% of the league makes $6 million or lower.
Yeah.
Which was already the lowest. Like NHL is already the lowest paid sport of the 4 major North American professional leagues. So then you're asking these players that make $3-4 million a year to take a pay cut, possibly get down to $1 million a year. They're not going to go for that.
No, absolutely not. It's like they're asking LeBron James, who just signed for over $40 million a year, to be like, oh, maybe can you just take $30 million this year? Like. The difference between 3 million and like you said, $1 million is a big deal when it comes to that. And I just don't understand it at all, honestly.
I mean, at this point in time, you know, I would do anything to make $1 million a year.
Their own division.
Sorry, what was that?
The whole thing is at this moment, Canada has to be their own division.
Well, yeah, that's just it because, you know, the Canadian federal government is not opening up the Canada-U.S. border anytime soon.
Yeah.
There's like a massive second wave going on everywhere in Canada. Like almost the entire country is back under lockdown. So that being said.
What if they move all of the Canadian teams to American cities?
It wouldn't start January 1st because they're projecting people to have to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks because after the bubble, everybody.
Well, even so even let's say they don't start January 1st. The issue you run into after that is that you can't travel through countries.
No.
So when you're talking about Canada being its own division, they're only playing each other all year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, NHL players hated the bubble when they went for playoffs. They hated it. They do not want to do that again.
So then you have to bring all of the Canadian teams to American cities to make it work. And then just rotate. Let's say one team goes to Chicago. You have 2 teams rotating through Chicago at all times.
I think we're frozen here.
To turn into like multiple bubbles this year because you can't just have all Canadian teams not playing any games in their home arenas. That's also a disadvantage. Yeah. So if you have like, say, a bubble for each division in the States, that might work. I don't know.
I mean, in a way, I'm all for because, like, if the NHL comes back, there's a very, very good chance, like we were saying, that it's going to be an all-Canadian division. So all 7 teams, like all 7 Canadian teams, will not travel into the U.S., play U.S.-based teams. They will just be playing every Canadian team probably 4, 5, 6 times a season, which I'm all for. If I can get 6 Battle of Albertas every single this season, I'm going to be all for it. Any chance that I get to watch Zach Kassian,
how do you do the playoffs?
Shit out of
Well, what if say the Canadian division, you rearrange all the divisions because there's Canadian teams in every division, so every division is going to change. You make it's going to be a shortened season, 45, 48 games. So every division just plays within their division, and then you go to playoffs from there.
So, so you still have the Canadians that can't come down to America. How do you do the playoffs?
By then, in the playoffs, they're gonna have to quarantine for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I can't see the NHL season working out any other way than having an all Canadian division. It's just that the Canadian government is so stingy right now with with how bad COVID is, the second wave in Canada. They're not going to want these American professional leagues like the Toronto Raptors. They have to go. They have to go play in, I think it's Nashville or Tampa Bay or something that they're playing in. The Toronto Blue Jays can't even play baseball in Canada right now because of there's American teams coming in. So, I mean, and the Canadian government was already hesitant about the whole bubble situation in Edmonton and Toronto.
Yeah.
So they're not going to want, with how strict and stingy the Canadian government is, they're not going to want these American teams coming into the country. Because, I mean, COVID's bad up here, but it's twice, 3 times as bad down in the States.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the other thing going back to, and it ties into COVID, is San Jose wants to play outdoors, but they're going to run into problems because they're in the same county as San Francisco. And I believe San Francisco 49ers just had to move to like Arizona to train because
they're playing their home games. That's a topic for another day, because I want to rant about that too. The San Francisco 49ers are playing home games at one of their biggest rivals' home stadium, which is that's like the San Jose Sharks going and playing in playing at Honda Center in Anaheim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so what is San Jose going to do, you know?
Comment here. You think with how the NFL has turned out, the NHL would learn what they shouldn't do. Not wanting a bubble kind of makes it sound like they don't want to pay.
That's supposed to be play.
I mean,
that is supposed to be play.
Yeah, I mean, see, I don't even know where to really go with that. Like, the players hated the bubble because they were away from their families.
Yeah.
You know, Dallas and Tampa, the 2 teams that made it to the Stanley Cup final, they were stuck going from arena to hotel for 2 straight months. They were away from their family, away from all sorts of civilization. Multiple players came out and said they do not want to do that again for a full season.
And yeah, that was just for 2 months. What is that going to be like for a full season? Like,
a full 4 or 5 months. Like, they're not going to do that. They're also not going to.
When it came to the conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals in Edmonton, only people from Canada could have their families there because the people from the States couldn't, or other countries couldn't fly their families there. So the only people that even saw their families were Canadians.
There have been stories. Get this. I have seen multiple stories where, there's a Canadian couple and the husband or the male or vice versa, the female, is a trucker or something that works in the States. And so this one story that I read, there was a woman who hasn't seen her husband since March because he was a trucker in the States and he's not allowed back in Canada. They won't even let an own Canadian citizen who was down there for work come back into the country. So he's been stuck in the States since March, hasn't seen his wife, hasn't seen his kids since then. Like, I can't imagine, with that situation, if the Canadian government's being that strict where they won't even let a Canadian citizen who was working in the States come up to the country, they are never in a million years going to let these American NHL teams come up to the country. So they kind of reach families to be there in a neutral bubble. No, they won't be able to. American players will not be allowed to have their American families come into Canada to a bubble. They won't. And the Canadian government's not going to allow it.
And like, they can't even, like, the more people you have in the bubble.
You're assuming. Whoa. You guys have me fully invested right now. You are assuming that this bubble would be happening in Canada, but if Canada is going to be this strict about things, they're going to take the teams in Canada and bubble them in America, whether it be in LA, Nashville, anywhere. They won't bubble in Toronto again. That just won't happen if they're going to be this stingy about it. So you can say, yeah, the Canadian government, no, they won't let that happen. Okay, yeah, they won't. Cool. NHL is based out of America to begin with. So they're all just going to go to American cities and bubble in American cities, whether you have all the Canadian teams still in their own division in Detroit and then rework the divisions and then bubble like that.
That's what I was thinking, a bubble for each division.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you have cities like Detroit and Buffalo that are literally right across the river from Canada, right? Like, I was in Detroit 2 years ago, and I could see Windsor, Ontario, from downtown Detroit looking over the river. Buffalo is the same way. You could probably see Niagara Falls or whatever city is across the thing. Anyways, so I mean, what you could do, I guess, is maybe have some kind of bubble in Detroit or Buffalo or those cities like Seattle coming up into the league. Those cities that are closer to Canada, but
No. The cities don't matter. It's the fact that the bubble will be happening in America. It doesn't have to be the Canadian teams in Buffalo because it doesn't matter in COVID. It could be the Canadian teams in Houston, Texas. It could be the Canadian teams in Phoenix, Arizona. It doesn't matter where they are.
But that's the thing, though. Canadian players aren't even allowed to go down into the States to play. Like you won't be able to have an American bubble because Canadian players or Canadian teams or Canadian players won't be allowed to go down there. And the NHL, as it is about 60% Canadian players.
All right.
So then you're saying that
Tim, hold on. I got the perfect response to that. All the Canadians in the WWE are still allowed to travel. Why wouldn't the NHL players be allowed to travel once?
They'll be allowed to travel. They'll just have to quarantine for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because
but then they're away from their families too, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not gonna want to do that.
The NHL can't provide hotel rooms and like big enough apartments for families to come down because
especially with the loss of revenue. Yeah, they're not going to be able to
struggling for money, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely not going to work. So I mean, that being said, and this is probably going to be the last part of this conversation before we get into what I really want to rant about. But yeah, I don't see it working. The NHL is not going to start January 1st. The league and the players are so far away on a deal on a revised CBA because they had to make up a whole new collective bargaining agreement for the NHL bubble playoffs. And now they basically threw that whole CBA out the window. They want to make a brand new one for this new season. And the players are not buying it. They're not taking any sort of pay cuts. They're not taking anything. So, I mean, the NHL, as it stands, like I said, they can't afford to not have a season because that's going to all the revenue and all the money is going to be out the window. And so they got to figure something out here, whether they open up, they allow teams to travel and have that all-Canadian division, have it so that all 7 Canadian teams just play each other and have the American teams travel around the country and play their own teams. But, you know, even if you have to say, like, okay, so if the Dallas Stars travel to Columbus Blue Jackets, Dallas Stars, if they have a home game or if they have an away game in Columbus, make it so that it's strict so that they can't go from they go from the hotel to the arena, to the arena.
Yeah.
That's it. They can't go out to bars, nightclubs, anything like that while they're in Columbus. They stick to the hotel. They're not in the hotel. They go to the arena. That's it. If you do something like that, then I can see this whole thing working out. You just got to be strict on what your players and teams can do when they're in other cities.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, that's what I think. And I mean, Canada's the same way. When you're not at home, at your home arena, just go from the hotel to the arena to the hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's plain as day, but I mean, the NHL is, like I said, is nowhere near. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens from there.
ECHL is already starting. How is the ECHL got the green light, but the NHL can't figure it out? You know.
Well, that's just it. And the AHL is nowhere near close to starting either. So I mean, that's just it, right? Like the ECHL, which is 2 calibers down from the NHL, is about to get underway, and that's the thing. Like the NHL maybe should take a play out of the ECHL's playbook and get their shit together and get everything going because. Like I said, if there's no NHL season this year, there's going to be no more NHL because I don't know how they can financially afford it.
Yeah, if there's no season this year, the NHL is going to take such a hit. Because for how many decades where like NHL players NHL players would have to work a second job off season just to survive.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and I mean that's the thing. And as I was saying, with NHLs being as underpaid as they are compared to other athletes, they are not going to take a pay cut or anything like that to get the season underway. So that being said, we're going to move into another topic here that I've been wanting to rant about for a long time. And Tim, I know you probably got some words to say about this too. Logan Paul and Jake Paul. Okay. That's about all I need to say here to get your blood boiling. Jake Paul, as you guys probably are already aware of, he's a YouTube star. He became popular on YouTube and Vine about 6-7 years ago. But he took on former NBA player Nate Robinson in a boxing match prior to the Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight last Saturday. Now, Logan Paul knocked out, or no, it was Jake Paul. Jake Paul knocked out Nate Robinson. He won by knockout. And now he's going around talking about how he can take on anyone. Evander Kane for the San Jose Sharks personally reached out there. Evander Kane and Logan Paul are in the middle of a Twitter war right now, saying how Evander Kane will kick the shit out of Logan Paul or Jake Paul or whoever. And Logan's saying stuff like, who is this guy? You know, like he's a hockey player. He's not going to have time to train for boxing. Now, I try to keep my swearing to a minimum on this show. So pardon my French when I say this, but what the actual fuck is Logan Paul talking about? He's a hockey player. He's not gonna have time to train for boxing. Do you know how tough hockey players are? Do you know who Evander Kane is? He's one of the biggest enforcers in the league. He's named after Evander Holyfield, for God's sakes. His dad is a former boxer, a former professional boxer. You can't tell me that you are going to beat, just because you beat a 5'9", you beat a 5'9" former NBA player. You're going to take on a 6'2", 230-pound NHL player who is known in the NHL to be an enforcer, to be a pest, and you think you're going to walk all over him? Like, it's mind blowing to me. Like, I was doing about that all day, and I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Whenever I watched that interview and he was like, how is he going to have time to train for boxing? I was like, you clearly have never watched hockey in your life. And you clearly don't know that when people get drafted to the NHL, they send you to boxing camp for at least a week or two. Just in case you have to drop the gloves in the NHL, you don't get killed.
Evander Kane, I know for a fact, he boxes in the offseason to keep in shape.
Oh,
I know he does. He's named after a boxer, for God's sakes. His dad is a professional boxer. He's gonna have he's gonna have access to all kinds of boxing equipment. That's one fight I want to see, because I want to see, like, I'm not an Evander Kane fan. Like, I actually do despise him. I do not like him at all. But he will wipe the floor. He will, like he said in the Twitter video he posted, he will rip the mop off Logan Paul's head and wipe the floor with it. And I agree 100%. Logan Paul or Jake Paul or whoever it is does not stand an absolute goddamn chance against Evander Kane.
Well, the latest was he wants to fight both of them.
I mean, I'd love to see that too, because he's going to kick the shit out of both of them.
Yeah, and in all honesty, we're talking a ton of shit right now. If somehow Evander Kane gets knocked the fuck out, that's going to be a huge dent to the fucking hockey world. Because
Exactly.
They're gonna be like, oh, hockey players were so tough, and a YouTuber knocked you out.
Yeah, I mean, I will give Jake Paul credit, because he has made it clear that he wants to, pursue boxing. He has played 2 boxing matches, won both by knockout. I'm not taking it away from the fact that he is a great boxer, but at the same time, like, I just don't.
When did Jake Paul have another boxing match?
I was looking up Jake Paul's stats, and it said he was 2-0 and he won both by knockout.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fact check that, but I believe you.
I mean, that's just what I mean. I also looked on Wikipedia, and I mean, you take Wikipedia with a grain of salt, but that's just what I saw. If I'm wrong, Jake, definitely correct me on that. But I did see that he was 2-0 and he won both by knockout. But I mean, even that's my rant. I just don't think Logan Paul or Jake Paul stands a chance against.
He is in fact 2-0. He beat Ali Eason Gibb on January 30th of this year with a TKO.
Yeah, so he is 2-0.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy. So I mean, and like Ryan Reeves was going after Logan Paul on Twitter too, and I mean, Evander Kane and Ryan Reeves, like, if you pay any attention to hockey, they hate each other in the worst possible way. Kane's a member of the Sharks. Reeves is a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. They're division rivals. They play against each other all the time. Kane and Reeves have had their fair share of Twitter exchanges.
Yeah.
chirping each other. But I mean, Ryan Reeves is another guy you do not want to mess with. Like, he would kick the absolute crap out of any one of the Paul brothers.
Well,
And I mean, personally, if you were to ask me, any hockey player would be able to beat the
Yeah.
Paul brothers.
there's a lot of hockey players in the NHL that I would pick over them. And
Yeah.
like, how can you go around thinking that you're fucking tough shit when you knock out a 5'9" retired NBA player? Like,
yeah.
oh, let me just flop because I got touched, and then I'm going to be out 6 months because I broke a nail. Like,
That's the thing. And I mean, not only that, but he's retired. He's no longer playing. In this case, you're talking about a player who is in shape. He's still an active NHL player, so he's still an athlete. He's still in marvelous shape. And you're going to be taking on I don't see it happening. I do not see the Paul brothers standing any sort of a chance. I mean, that's just me.
No, I don't see it either. But like I said, that slim chance where if he just knocks him out, it's going to look so bad for the NHL. But
Yeah,
like you said,
I don't see it happening.
Like 75 to 80% of players in the NHL, I think, could probably beat them in a fight.
Yeah. So I mean, it will be interesting. Like, I'm interested to see kind of where this goes. I mean, Evander Kane already tweeted and said he accepts a fight, and Logan Paul tweeted him back and said, "Let's do it. Let's fight." So I mean, they both want to do it. It's something they both express interest in, but we just don't know. Like, it's not confirmed yet. There's no date, nothing. So I mean, it's definitely something we're gonna have to keep an eye on. But I mean, I don't watch boxing. I don't watch wrestling.
No.
But if this is gonna happen, I will pay 20. I'll pay whatever it is on per pay-per-view to watch it.
When I first found out that like Logan Paul was a YouTuber and that he fought like a former NBA player, I was like, this is why I hate boxing so much.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah.
the second Evander Kane got involved, I was like, oh shit! Like, now there's an NHL player, I gotta get involved here.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. Like, it's definitely a fight that I'm gonna want to see when it happens. It's definitely probably not gonna happen till probably summer of 2021 at the earliest.
Well,
the
other interesting thing is Nate Thompson was retired. He had no contract to an NBA team. I've read that, like, who knows if San Jose is going to even allow Evander Kane to step into a boxing ring.
Well, that's the thing. And I mean, if it does happen, it's going to have to be approved by the Sharks. So it's definitely not going to happen while the Sharks season's going on, because there's no way in hell the Sharks management or the NHL is going to allow that. So it's going to have to happen during the offseason. And even that, the Sharks are going to have to give him permission, because all of a sudden some freak accident happens where Evander Kane gets brutally hurt and he misses the season. Like, that's not going to look good at all, you know? So, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of kinks to be worked out there, but it's definitely something that I'm going to want to see if it happens. But that's my rant. I mean, Logan Paul talking smack about these NHL players, like, just shut up, man, because you have no idea. You have no idea what NHL players do. They how they train on the off season, and that's just my only rant that I have there. But it was just, you know what I mean.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So I got next on the list now. Another topic that me and you were talking about earlier, Tim. Is COVID really ruining prospects' chances at being drafted into the NHL? My answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't imagine trying to go to the NHL and just having your season canceled. Like, what? The Q got canceled? Like, college hockey is fucked up right now. There's different schools starting at different times. How does any NHL scout get a good look at you while, like, you can't even play?
WHL, which is one of the three major junior leagues in Canada. WHL is postponed till December 19th at the earliest. They just released something that said, they'll reevaluate on December 19th, but if the situation doesn't get any better, it'll be extended into the new year. I mean, you have these 18, 19-year-old players that are draft eligible this year. This is their time to show NHL players that they belong in the league, and they don't even get a chance to play. They don't even get a chance to play and develop their skills. This is going to hurt not only the junior leagues, but it's going to hurt the NHL as well. Because how does the NHL scouts, how are the NHL scouts going to be able to give an accurate assessment on these prospects coming up?
Yeah.
They're not
And
going to be able to.
when this generation of NHL players like have to retire, who is gonna fill like those 2 or 3 years? Because I don't see this going away anytime soon.
And
So like imagine being a high school player your senior year and you like no fans in the stands. You're lucky if you can even play a game. Good luck getting a college scholarship. And then if you don't get a college scholarship, then you have no shot in hell in making it to the NHL because you have to be a standout college guy to get drafted.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, this goes back to I can't remember if we talked about this on a previous show or not, but this goes back to the QMJHL banning fighting completely from their league. Like that's another thing too. Like not only is COVID-19 ruining their chances, but the QMJHL completely banning fighting from their league. Like you have no idea how many NHL scouts look for those tough guys that are able to hold their own and stand up for, their, like, let's say Edmonton Oilers, for example. They're going to want someone possibly in the future to be able to protect McDavid and Draisaitl and their assets there. So now you have all these great players in the queue, but you can't assess them properly because how are the tough guys supposed to stand out now with no fighting?
Yeah.
Like that's fighting and being tough and everything is exactly what these leagues like the NHL look for. Mind you, that being said, I mean, you can still play the body and be physical. Like, there's no rule against that. But fighting is a part of hockey. Like, I don't know how you can just take that out. Like,
well, you're lucky that they only took fighting out because in the States, there's different leagues where if players get too close together and there's too much body contact, the ref's going to blow the whistle.
Yeah.
So good luck. Good luck when you go to actual contact hockey and you can have your head down the entire time looking at the puck. You're going to get knocked the fuck out. And, I wonder why concussions are such a problem in the NHL. Well, when kids are able to grow up their entire life with their head down and they don't need to pick their head up, they're going to get lit the fuck up when they get hit.
See, and this, like, I don't know what it's like in the States now, or, like, do you guys go by, like, Atom, Pee-wee, Bantam?
We go by
Or,
mosquito, mite, squirt, Pee-wee, Bantam.
Okay, so anyways, so squirt would be Atom up here, and then Pee-wee, Bantam. So body contact up in Canada is completely banned, not allowed, right up until Bantam.
I believe that's what it is now, if not even older. Like,
yeah, and there was, get this, there was a motion that was passed, or it wasn't passed, it was talked about. It was disapproved, or if that's not a word, but it was rejected to get body contact moved to midget. Now, that being said, midget is 15, 16, 17-year-olds.
That's high school.
That's high school. You have if you do that, like any good hockey player is 3 years away from being drafted into the NHL possibly, and you don't introduce body contact until midget.
Like, you're just lining kids up to get killed.
Well, and these kids, like these smaller kids that, they didn't have body contact in squirt or mosquito or Pee-wee or Bantam even. They have no contact in Bantam, so these literally smaller kids are going to just play with their head down because they don't get hit. Then you get into midget, you have these smaller guys that are so used to playing with their head down, they get absolutely cranked. Like, how do you even prepare kids to deal with that?
When I started playing, like, as a kid, like, there was two different, like, levels where from the beginning age to Pee-wee, there was no contact. But Pee-wee was, like, 8 or 9 years old, I think. But then there was also a different level where you could hit as young as you wanted. So when I was 4 or 5, I was playing full contact hockey.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine playing hockey at 13, 14, 15 years old, not knowing what a check feels like or how to give a check.
See, and the game of hockey, I'm gonna say it's soft. It's turned into such a soft sport. It's because
it's faster and there's more finesse, but there's way less body contact and fighting, which I think is taking a lot away from the game.
It is. And like that being said, like you were just saying how you had contact hockey when you were 4 or 5. I think I started playing contact hockey when I was like 9 or 10. But like even that is standard, right? Like you're still
Yeah.
small enough that you're not going to play against a 9-year-old that can just line you up into the boards. So I mean, that being said, like we still grew up playing body contact from a young age. But then if you switch that, where you don't play, like these kids that are coming into the league and coming to play hockey, don't have to play with body contact till they're 15 years old. Like there are some massive 15-year-olds out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, you can't hit till midget. Well, if you're 14, 15 in high school and you can hit in high school, that 18-year-old is going to tee you up like no problem.
Well, exactly. A 15-year-old that is coming into the league that has never played body contact before against a 17, 18-year-old that is 6'3", 6'4", just lines you up into the boards, you don't stand a chance. And
No.
so, I mean, I think that's a big reason why the motion was rejected up here, because for that exact reason, like kids have to learn how to play, because hockey is a physical sport, whether you like it or not. It's a contact sport. That's like taking the tackling out of football.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But anyways, getting back to this COVID-19 thing, the Finnish Liga, which is one of the professional leagues, I think, or the junior league, something like that in Finland, completely canceled up till December 19th. 7,000 active cases of COVID right now in Finland. So they, due to the rising numbers in Finland, I mean, 7,000 is not a whole lot for Canada or US, but in Finland, where it's a lot smaller country, it is a big number. So they've postponed and canceled games right up till December 19th. That again plays a part, because not only do these scouts look for, at the OHL, the WHL, the universities and college teams for drafting, they also look into these European leagues and these Russian leagues.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So when
the population of Finland is 5.518 million, so it's not that small.
Sorry, on my end, Jake cut out. I didn't understand him, but what was that?
He said the population of Finland is over 5 million, so it's not that small.
Okay, I mean over 5 million, but I mean at 7,000 active cases in a country of 5 million, you're probably good in that defense. But I mean, this goes back to, I mean, I'm gonna rant about it. This goes back to this whole COVID thing being blown completely out of proportion. I mean, I'm still gonna be one to wear masks and do what the government tells me to do, but it's not going to stop me from thinking this whole thing's the media is blowing it way out of proportion. It's a lot worse. We had someone up here, like the top doctor in the province up here, said that if you go to the hospital or the clinic to get a COVID test and you have just a cold, you're going to test positive for COVID, because the same test that they used to administer for COVID tests for like cold and flu and stuff, which just goes to show how exaggerated those numbers are.
Yeah.
Like I could just have the sniffles, but I would test positive for COVID.
And you're not gonna see the effect immediately in sports, but I think in the next 3 to 5 years, when that era of kids coming up into professional sports, they're gonna be lacking some skills compared to what's going on right now, because they just can't play or train or anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like it's COVID's got to end. Like I know the NHL was saying again, like with Gary Bettman having that press conference there, Gary Bettman did say that they were leaning strongly towards a vaccine coming out early 2021 to reduce the numbers of COVID and get back to some sense of a normal life. But that being said, with how bad cases are right now in North America and across the world, I don't know if you can really go by depending on a vaccine.
Well,
like you need to.
Only 40% of the population really gets vaccines anyway. So, like there's still going to be at least half of the population that doesn't even get the vaccine. And how many people are going to actually trust this vaccine right off the bat?
Yeah, and that's just it, right? Like you're going to have people that are willingly. What I heard a story that how they would test the vaccine is they would get these volunteers that would willingly go in and be injected with the coronavirus to test positive for coronavirus. So they would literally be injected with it, and then they would inject them with the vaccine to see if it rids them completely.
How
Like
much are they
that's
paid for that?
well, I mean that's the thing, right? So, like I don't know. I think if you're the NHL and other sports leagues, you have to kind of not depend on a vaccine and kind of work with what you have and work on starting a season. Like the NBA, I will say this, I've always said this, Adam Silver is the best commissioner out of the 4 major leagues because Adam Silver did not screw around. He knew exactly how to get like the NBA season going. NBA's got a plan to return. They've got their free agency's passed. They've got all these plans on how they're going to play, where they're going to play, when the season starts. Like they did not screw around. The NHL just needs to, have something that is equal to what the NHL wants and what the NHLPA wants.
And in comparison to the NHL and NBA, look at the free agency. You have Anthony Davis sign a contract worth over $100 million. LeBron James on the same team, over $85 million for 2 years. And then you look at NHL free agency, only a couple guys got paid. Even Taylor Hall, 1-year deal with Buffalo. Like there wasn't much movement at all in the free agency, I feel like, or much money being thrown around because no one knows what the future looks like.
And I was just thinking like that it's just crazy the difference that makes because you were talking about LeBron James signing a 2-year, $85 million deal. That's like $42 million a year. And then you got Anthony Davis, who just signed for like I think it was 5 years, $190 million or something. It was I did the math yesterday, and it was $38 million a year. So you've got LeBron making $42 million, and Anthony Davis making $38 million on the same team. That's $80 million combined. That is a whole NHL team salary cap.
And 2 players right there.
In
done.
2 players. Like it's crazy the difference in salary cap that these leagues have with the NHL.
And like I don't know. I get that the NHL doesn't have a contract with TV networks, but I just find it like the numbers have to be true, but I just find it so hard that NHL players don't get paid more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it is going to be interesting, absolutely, to see, what goes on with the NHL in the future and with how they deal with this COVID situation and all these junior leagues throughout the North America and the world that are postponed or canceled because of COVID and ruining these prospect chances. Like it's going to be, I don't know how you can get a full assessment of a prospect for the 2021 NHL draft.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Another thing that I want to talk about real quick, Tim, I'm going to switch it over. We got about 10 minutes left in the show. We just learned about this tonight too, but the New York Rangers will not release Alexis Lafreniere to Team Canada for the World Juniors because they are scared of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Hughes will not be released by the New Jersey Devils to play with the American team for the exact same reason. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
Are they already is Lafreniere already in New York City and is Hughes still in Jersey?
I believe so. Don't quote me on that. But
because maybe they don't want to send him back to the Canadian border to train and then have to deal with sending him back to America because right then alone, that's a month of quarantine at minimum.
I mean, I don't know. Unless, I don't know where Alexis Lafreniere is or what he's doing. But if he is in New York, I mean, I get it. But he was drafted, obviously, to the New York Rangers after the season ended. And with no with no date of the next season starting, I could just see Lafreniere staying in Quebec where he's from. And if that's the case, if Lafreniere is in Quebec, I don't know if I agree with that completely because he's already in Canada. And not only that, but you don't know when the league's going to start. If you're the Rangers or the Devils, in my opinion, don't you want your players to kind of find some way to stay in shape in the offseason?
That's a good point right there, too. But on the other token, what if they get hurt in the tournament?
That's the thing. But that's the thing but that's with any World Juniors player, right?
And not play in a World Junior tournament.
That is obviously a risk that you have to take, but that's the same with any other players. There's these players on Team Canada, Team USA, Team Sweden, you name it, that are all either drafted into the NHL or top prospects to be drafted into the NHL. And I mean, they go to play in the World Juniors. That's a chance that they take, is that they could possibly get hurt. But if you're the New York Rangers, where you just drafted Alexis Lafreniere, who most likely will be your franchise player for years to come, don't you want him to go to Edmonton and Calgary, where the World Juniors bubble will be, and actually get some hockey games and like hockey experience? Because I mean, especially with no beginning to the NHL in sight yet, I mean, if I was the Rangers or the Devils, I would want Jack Hughes to go play in the World Juniors, or Alexis Lafreniere to go play in the World Juniors, because it will give them, like, you know, time to be on the ice, time to play hockey, get back into the thick of things, and everything like that. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's probably good reasons why the Rangers and Devils didn't release them. I'm guessing COVID was the main reason. But, I mean, I disagree with that decision, because if I was the Rangers or the Devils, I would want them to go get some hockey games under their belt. That's just me, though.
There's definitely a risk there, but the other positive would be, say one of them play very well. That adds to their value if down the road you want to trade them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like all of a sudden Lafreniere goes, he plays 7 games in the World Juniors, gets 15, 16 points. That's huge. That's over 2 points a game. And Lafreniere is a good enough player that he definitely has the capability to do that. So, I mean, if Lafreniere goes to the tournament and scores 2 points a game, an average of 2 points a game, then you know what you're getting into if you're a member of the New York Rangers. You know that this guy is good. He can play at the junior level. Do you see Bruins playing at Patriots Place? And even if they were to play at Fenway, do you see both teams playing there? That's a good question. Actually, we talked about that a little earlier, but I want to know what Tim has to say about that. So we will talk about that before the end of the show, Heather. But yeah, Lafreniere. I mean, personally, I think it's a poor decision by the Rangers, but I mean, I can't vouch for reasoning or anything like that why they did it.
I think right now it's their prized possession, you know.
So Tim, before we call it a day here, I want to know I kind of want to hear your opinion on this, because not only do the Bruins have the possibility to play at Gillette Stadium or Fenway Park, but that goes for multiple teams throughout the league. Like, that also goes for the Minnesota Wild playing at is it Target Field where the Twins play, or the Pittsburgh Penguins playing at Heinz Stadium where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. That's another thing too that they were talking about with the outdoor games, like especially with the Steelers being 11-0 right now. They were talking about the Steelers possibly hosting home games at Heinz Field till the end of January. So if you have the Penguins, you can't just convert a football field into an ice rink, and you can't just take down an ice rink to be a football field in the time that it would take the Penguins and Steelers to share a field. So the same thing with the Bruins playing outdoor games. If the Bruins were to play at Fenway Park, that's going to start interfering into the Red Sox season. So how do you think the league would manage that if this outdoor games were to go?
I got it. Why are we assuming? Yeah, I come in just got it. So why are we assuming, and this goes to Heather too, why are we assuming it's something like Gillette Stadium or Fenway Park? Why don't we start thinking college football stadiums?
Because they won't be able to put one there to make enough revenue with social distancing.
College stadiums are pretty big down there, aren't they?
Not these.
Yes. Even like where we are, Boston College, for example, they can still fit. Let me look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure they can still fit 40,000. Put that at 20%, you still get 20,000.
I mean, if a college football stadium holds 40,000 people, you can easily get 10,000 people in there and still make a decent
44,500 people. So you can get at 50%. Now, mind you, no sport is doing 50% capacity yet. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So if we're taking the beginning of this, we're looking at more like 20 to 25%. That seems to be the average down here. And then you have the state of Florida just said, screw it, you can fill your stadiums.
Yeah.
Bad idea. Don't do that.
Florida, though.
But if you're looking at 20%, you're still at least getting 10 to 12,000 people. And if you use a college stadium, you don't have that interference of the other major leagues trying to get into that stadium as well. Involved.
But are college sports playing right now, though?
No.
The college football season will be over by New Year's. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought of that. I mean, you could possibly get the college stadiums there. I never really thought of that, but
It is like as close as Fenway Park is to the Garden too, so it'd be it wouldn't be a travel problem.
I mean, but again, like going back to that comment that Heather made there, I even if that was the case, I don't see the NHL players approving that. And I'm going to go back on my word and say, like, if you're the NHL, why don't you open up TD Garden or open up XL Energy Center or Rogers Arena or wherever to 50%, even 30% capacity. And that way you still get the ticket sale revenue. You still get the revenue from concession. You still get the revenue from 50-50, stuff like that. I mean, if that's the route that I would maybe go, and then just have everyone wear a mask when you're there.
The whole thing is, though, is even in Boston, yes, Boston has cold winters. But whether you play at a college stadium, Fenway, or Gillette Stadium, by May or June, you're not going to have ice.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And I mean, like, summers in the States, no matter where you are, get warm.
We're going to have an answer for 8 to 10 weeks, maybe, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Then what do we do after that?
Yeah, that's just it. So anyways, we are pretty much out of time here. We're going to give way to Hunter and Elizabeth coming on with Behind the Basket. Their first show in 2 weeks. Obviously, with Thanksgiving being last Thursday, there was no Behind the Basket last week. So they got a lot to talk about. So we're going to give way to them. Also, you saw it pop up on the banner there. We are now on Instagram on Inside the Ice. We're going to post everything to do with hockey there. So give us a follow, Inside the Ice GCSN on Instagram. And we will look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday.
See you guys next Thursday.